The wind whispers through the trees, it carries secrets, ancient stories, tales told around flickering fires, tales that make your blood run cold. These are not just stories, they are warnings. Deep in the heart of America, shadows move. In the desert southwest, the Navajo people whisper of the skinwalker, a witch, a shapeshifter, a thing of nightmare. It walks in two worlds, human and beast. Further north, in the frozen forests of Canada, another legend haunts the night. The Algonquin people call it the Wendigo, a creature of insatiable hunger, a spirit of the north wind. Its heart beats beneath a mask of ice and bone. These creatures are not myths, they are real, and they are waiting. Every culture has its monsters, creatures that stalk our dreams, that prey on our fears. The Skinwalker and the Wendigo are two of the most terrifying. Their stories have been passed down for generations, whispered warnings of what lurks just beyond the firelight, of the things that watch us from the darkness. Are you brave enough to hear their tales, to peer into the abyss of ancient legends, to confront the creatures that haunt our darkest nightmares? Turn the page if you dare. But be warned, once you know the truth, you can never unknow it. The darkness is listening, and it knows your name. The Skinwalker, a name that sends shivers down your spine, a creature born of Navajo legend. But what is it exactly? The Navajo people, known as Dine in their language, have a rich and complex history. They believe in a delicate balance, a harmony between man and nature, a world where spirits walk among us. Among these spirits are the medicine men and women, healers, protectors. They keep the balance. But there is a dark side to this power, a dangerous path some choose to walk. This is the path of the Skinwalker. The Navajo name for Skinwalker is Yi-Nald-Lushi. It means with it he goes on all fours, a chilling description for a truly terrifying creature. Imagine a figure, humanoid in shape. But something is wrong, its skin crawls, its eyes glow with unnatural hunger. It wears the skin of an animal, a wolf, a coyote, a bear. This is the power of the Skinwalker, to shed its human form, to take on the shape of any animal it chooses, to walk unseen in the world, to spread fear and chaos. What drives a person to become a Skinwalker? Power, greed, revenge. The reasons are as old as time itself, but the price they pay is terrible. Section 3, The Price of Power. Becoming a Skinwalker is the ultimate taboo in Navajo culture. It is a perversion of their sacred traditions, a betrayal of everything they hold dear. The ritual is dark and dangerous. It involves murder, incest, necromancy. The Skinwalker embraces evil to gain its power, and the price it pays is its soul. Once the transformation is complete, there is no going back. The Skinwalker is forever cursed, trapped between worlds, hunted by its own people, doomed to walk the earth in darkness. But the danger is very real. The Skinwalker is not a myth. It is a nightmare made flesh, and it is waiting for you in the shadows. Further north, the air grows colder. The trees huddle closer, their branches bare and skeletal against the twilight sky. This is the domain of the Wendigo, a creature of the deep woods, a spirit of winter's embrace. The Algonquin people tell stories of the Wendigo, whispers around the fire, warnings etched in the frost on their breath. It is a creature of hunger, of insatiable appetite. But its hunger is not for flesh alone. It craves the essence of man, his spirit, his soul. They say the wind carries its voice, a high-pitched wail, a mournful cry that chills the blood and steals the warmth from your bones. To hear it is to know fear, to feel the icy grip of the Wendigo on your heart. Beware the whispers on the wind, they may be the last thing you ever hear. The Wendigo is often depicted as a skeletal figure. Its bones are draped in rotting flesh, its eyes burn with a cold, unnatural light. Its breath hangs in the air like smoke, even in the bitterest cold. But the Wendigo's true form is far more terrifying. It is a shapeshifter, a creature of shadow and mist. It can appear as a loved one, a lost traveler, a beacon of hope in the darkness, all the better to lure its victims to their doom. The Wendigo is driven by an insatiable hunger, a hunger that can never be satisfied. It consumes the flesh and spirits of its victims, growing stronger with each kill. But its hunger is not just physical. It is a reflection of the darkness that lies within us all. The greed, the envy, the desire to consume and possess. The Wendigo is a warning, a reminder of the monsters that lurk within, the creatures we become when we succumb to our darkest impulses. The Wendigo is more than just a monster. It is a spirit of the north, a creature of the cold and the dark. Its origins are shrouded in mystery. Some say it was once a human hunter, driven to madness by starvation. He consumed the flesh of his companions, transforming into the very thing he had devoured. Others believe the Wendigo is a spirit of winter, an embodiment of the cold, harsh realities of life in the north, a reminder of the ever-present threat of starvation, of the fragility of human life in the face of nature's indifference. Regardless of its origins, the Wendigo is a powerful symbol. It represents the dangers of the natural world, the darkness that lies at the heart of humanity. It is a creature to be feared, to be respected, to be avoided at all costs. The Wendigo is a reminder that even in the most desolate corners of the world, we are not alone. Something watches from the shadows, something hungry, something ancient, and it knows our name. Old Man Finnegan knew the woods. He'd hunted these hills for 60 years. He knew every path, every creek, every shadow, but he'd never seen anything like this. He sat by the fire, a tin cup of coffee warming his hands. His eyes were distant, haunted. It was a big one, he muttered, his voice raspy with age and fear. Bigger than any buck I'd ever seen. 10 points, maybe 12, and those eyes. He shuddered, the memory still vivid. Those eyes weren't right. They glowed in the moonlight like hot coals. Finnegan had tracked the buck for hours, deeper and deeper into the woods. It was like the animal was leading him, drawing him in. The sun was setting, casting long, eerie shadows through the trees. That's when he heard it, a low growl, deep and guttural, unlike anything he'd ever heard before. He turned, his rifle raised, his heart pounding in his chest. And there, standing in the shadows, was a figure. Tall and gaunt, its skin stretched tight over its bones, its eyes glowed with an unnatural light. It wore the skin of a deer, its antlers twisted and grotesque. Finnegan knew then that he wasn't hunting the buck. He was being hunted. The fire crackled, sending sparks spiraling up into the night sky. Sarah huddled closer to her brother, her eyes wide with fear. They'd been lost for hours, ever since they wandered away from the campsite. The woods were dark and unfamiliar, the trees looming over them like silent giants. "It's okay, Sarah," her brother Tom said, trying to sound brave. "We'll find our way back, we just need to stay calm." But even to his own ears, his words sounded hollow. He was scared too. He'd heard the stories. The legends whispered around campfires, legends of creatures that stalked the night, preying on the lost and the weak. A low growl echoed through the trees, sending shivers down their spines. Sarah gripped her brother's hand tighter, her breath catching in her throat. "What was that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Tom shook his head, his heart pounding in his chest. "I don't know," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "but we need to go." They started running, their flashlights bouncing wildly, casting grotesque shadows that danced and twisted around them. But the growling only grew louder, closer. It was behind them, gaining on them. They could smell it now, a stench of decay and rot like something dead and buried long ago. The old woman sat alone in her cabin, a single lantern casting flickering shadows on the rough-hewn walls. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows and sending shivers down her spine. It was a night for stories, she thought, stories to keep the darkness at bay. She had heard the stories, passed down from parent to child, whispered warnings of the creatures that lurked in the shadows. Creatures that walked on 2 legs or 4, creatures that could mimic the voices of loved ones. Tonight, the wind seemed to whisper those stories, carrying them on the breeze like forgotten lullabies. She could almost hear the rasping breath of the skinwalker, the clicking of its claws on the roof. She knew they were out there, watching, waiting. The wind howled through the forest, twisting the branches of the trees into grotesque shapes. It was a cold wind, a hungry wind, a wind that carried the scent of snow and death. The forest groaned under its assault, its voice a symphony of creaks and groans, like the cries of 1,000 tormented souls. The hunters had been warned. The elders had told them of this place, this cursed stretch of woods where the trees themselves seemed to scream in agony. They had been told to stay away, to avoid it at all costs. But the hunters were young and foolish, their heads filled with tales of glory and their hearts consumed by the thrill of the chase. They had been tracking a large buck, its tracks leading them deeper and deeper into the heart of the screaming forest. The sun had begun its descent, casting long, eerie shadows that danced and twisted around them like phantoms. The air grew colder, the wind more insistent, its whispers turning to moans, then to screams, and then they saw it, a clearing up ahead, bathed in an unnatural light. In the center of the clearing stood a figure, tall and gaunt, its limbs impossibly long and thin. Its head was thrown back, its mouth open in a silent scream, its eyes burning with a cold white fire. The fire crackled and hissed, casting dancing shadows on the walls of the tent. The trapper, a grizzled old man, looked at the young man sitting across from him. The young man's face was pale, his eyes wide with terror. He slowly pulled back his collar, revealing deep ragged scratches on his neck. They oozed a thin black fluid that smoked in the firelight. The trapper had heard the stories of creatures that stalked the night, creatures that marked their victims, claiming them as their own. "You were lucky," the trapper said gravely, "lucky to escape with your life." There's no guidebook for surviving an encounter with the supernatural. No guaranteed spells, no silver bullets. These creatures, the skinwalker and the Wendigo, they feed on fear, on the darkness in our hearts. They defy logic, reason. Some say fire offers protection, a circle of light in the encroaching darkness. Others speak of iron, cold and unforgiving, a barrier against the spirit world. But these are just whispers, passed down through generations, their origins lost in the mists of time. The truth is, if you come face to face with a skinwalker or a Wendigo, survival is a long shot. But hope, however fragile, is a flickering candle in the dark. It's something to cling to. Let's say you find yourself in their hunting grounds. The air grows cold, and the shadows seem to twist and writhe around you. Panic is your enemy, fear is their weapon. Stay calm as best you can. The skinwalker, they say, is vulnerable to weapons of bone, a desperate gamble against a creature that can wear your face. For the Wendigo, fire might offer a reprieve, a moment's hesitation in its relentless hunger. But the real battle, the one that truly matters, is fought within. Hold on to your courage, cling to the light within you. These creatures thrive on despair, on the darkness that festers in the human soul. If you're lucky, you'll never encounter these creatures. But knowledge is its own kind of armor. Remember their stories. Heed the warnings whispered by the wind and the trees. Respect the ancient power that lurks in the shadows. Survival, in the face of such primal terror, is more than just luck. It's a prayer whispered into the darkness. A hope that something, some unseen force, will hear your plea and shield you from harm. And if you find yourself face to face with the nightmare, remember this. Don't look away. Don't turn your back on the darkness. Stare into its eyes and pray. It doesn't see the fear in yours, because in the end, we are all just prey, running from the inevitable. We've journeyed through the dark heart of folklore. We've faced the skinwalker, a creature of twisted magic, and the Wendigo, a spirit of insatiable hunger. Their stories are unsettling, chilling echoes of ancient fears. But these legends are more than just campfire tales. They reflect our deepest anxieties, the primal terror that lurks just beyond the reach of civilization. The skinwalker, a warning against the corrupting influence of power. The Wendigo, a reminder of the darkness that dwells within us all. These creatures, they prey on our vulnerabilities. They test the boundaries of our understanding. And in a world where the lines between myth and reality blur, who's to say they aren't real? The next time you find yourself in the wilderness, listen closely. The wind may be whispering a warning. The shadows may be hiding something ancient and hungry. The true horror of the skinwalker and the Wendigo lies not in their fangs or claws, but in what they represent. The potential for evil that exists in every heart. The ease with which we can succumb to our darkest impulses. We all have the capacity for greed, for envy, for the insatiable hunger that drives the Wendigo. We all harbor the potential for the kind of power-hungry ambition that creates a skinwalker. The question is, how well do we resist? The next time you hear a strange noise in the night, the next time you feel a chill run down your spine, remember this. The most terrifying monsters are often the ones we create ourselves. Be careful of the shadows you cast. Be wary of the hunger that gnaws at your soul, and never, ever underestimate the power of fear. Because sometimes, the things that go bump in the night are closer than you think.